If something's too big or complicated, a good approach to deal with it is to break it down into smaller blocks. If those blocks are still too big, repeat the process and break them down again. Welcome to part 2 of the Camera2 APIs tutorial. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. Okay, we're going to start approaching and building our Camera2 API camera. Okay, one of the important concepts of the Camera2 APIs is surfaces and understanding surfaces. So surface is representative of something like the memory you're going to save a photo to, or the preview display so you can actually see what you're taking of, or it could be a video that you're taking. So they're very important parts. So we're going to break it down initially to the surface preview, in other words displaying what your camera is seeing. That's one surface, so we're going to start with that. Even that's quite a bit of work, so I'm going to break it down to setting up the sizes for that preview service, so to speak. So I'll make a start now. Okay, from the previous tutorial we've done the look and feel. Part of that was adding a texture view here. So basically the texture view is going to be where we're sending the preview images to, the preview video to, so you can actually see what you're taking a photo of. Okay, so let's get that set up. So go to our activity. Okay, the first thing we want to do is add a variable that associates itself with that texture view. I'll just call it mTextureView. Okay, the next step I want is the height, the width and the height of that texture view is important dimensions of what I'm going to communicate with the camera to get width and height, their width and height dimensions to send to my texture view. So with my texture view, I'm going to have to wait for it to be inflated so I can get that width and height. So I need a listener for the texture view, so I'm going to set that up now. And it's going to be a surface texture listener. I'll call it M surface texture. And it shouldn't be there. Okay, now we're going to assign it. Okay, you can see Android Studio's pre-populated my surface texture listener with the overridden methods I can implement. The only one I'm worried about at the moment is when surface texture is available. So when it's available, I will have the width and the height of that texture, which is when I can start working out my width and height of the actual preview. So I'm just going to create a call to a function that a call to a method I haven't yet created. So we'll just call this method set up camera, and it's going to take the width and the height. And that's it. I'll set that method up a little bit later on. Just complete that that member. Okay, now I want to go into my onCreate method and set up our texture view member to the TextureView that we set up in the XML file. And it's the same as what we normally do. We'll need to cast this to the TextureView. And call that a find view by ID. It should be r.id. And I did call it TextureView. Okay, so I've now set up my TextureView. Now I'll go back up here and I'll create the method set up camera. And I'll put that at the bottom. Oh, just before I do that, there's something else I need to add, which is quite important. I want to access my camera when the application starts. Then I want to remove all the resources associated with the camera when I move to another application. So the first part of that is when I turn the camera on. And the onResume method, I want to set up my camera. So just down here is a good place. I'll create the onResume method. It's an overridden method. Void. Okay, we need to call this super constructor. Okay, I'll do a check here to see if my TextureView is being initialized and set up. So is available, I believe, yeah. And at the moment, I'll leave this unimplemented, but I will go to here. And here's where we're going to actually set up our texture listener. So we'll set SurfaceTextureListener with our... So this is the important part. When we're first starting the application, the texture listener will not yet have been set up. So we'll set it up here with the SurfaceTextureListener method that we set it up. And if we go back up to the top here, once it becomes available, we'll have the width and the height for that texture. So that's all we're going to do in this moment in time for the onResume. Now we're going to create our setup camera. And this is going to take an nth for the width, and same again for the height. Okay, right, we're going to set up the camera. Now when we need to access camera resources, we need to call what's called the Camera Manager. So we'll create a Camera Manager. And to get hold of it, you could get services, get system services. And it's going to be passing the context of the camera service for that. And we need to cast this as well to the Camera Manager. Okay, so we've now got hold of the camera itself. The next thing to do is because we're going to be calling resources from the camera, we need to put that inside a harness in case anything goes wrong. It's going to be a try-catch. So we need to catch anything goes wrong with accessing the camera. And at this stage, we're just going to print the stack out. Okay, So we've got hold of the camera manager. With that information, we can find out how many cameras we've actually got on our device. For example, a modern camera will have a rear-facing camera and a front-facing camera, and we can get hold of this information using the camera manager. So we're going to do that now. We only want to use the rear-facing camera for this. So we'll put it in a for loop. And the string, there's an ID for each camera in your smartphone, and it's called a camera. It's basically called a cameraId, and it's a string. And we call the camera manager. And it's the get list ID that will turn a list of all the cameras associated with our device. Okay, I actually only want to use the rear-facing camera, not the front-facing camera. So now that I've got my cameraId, I can get the characteristics of each camera. And once I've got the characteristics of each camera, I can find out which one is the front-facing camera and skip that. So the first thing I need to do is to create a new object, CameraCharacteristics. Let's call it CameraCharacteristics equals, and we can use the camera manager again to get hold of that. Get camera characteristics, and here's where we pass in the ID. Let me just bring this across so you can all see this quite clearly. Okay, once I've got the camera characteristics, I can find out if it's a front-facing camera. So we'll call it the camera, and there's a get where I can get camera characteristics. So this will tell me, this will return the lens facing. So if it's lens facing front or rear, I want to skip the front. And compare that to lens facing front. So if I do pick up a front facing camera, I will just skip it in this for loop just by calling continue. So now I've got the characteristics associated with this particular cameraId. I want to get what's called the string configuration map, and that will have the sizes of the preview, that will support the previews that I want. So I'll create that now. And it's going to be a stream configuration map variable. I'll just call it map. And to get hold of that, we call the camera characteristics again. Do a get. And this is going to be the SCADA stream configuration map that holds this detail. Okay, once I've got this information, I can get hold of the sizes, but I'm going to create an extra method here just to go through the list of the sizes and match the closest dimensions supported in the map with what I am actually set up the original TextureView with. So let me just create a new method to check that. It's going to be a private method. It's going to return a size which holds the width and the height of my desired dimensions for the TextureView. And it's going to be util size. And also just put get preferred preview size. Okay, and that's first of all, it's going to take a string of sizes that we would have got from the map, an array of sizes. Let's call it map sizes. It's also going to take the width and the height of our desired texture view. Okay, now we're going to just create a list of sizes just to hold the contents of our map sizes, just to be loaded up with the closest size images, and then we'll select the smallest one from that. So we'll create that method now, and it's going to be a list, and it's going to take the size. Let's just call it collector sizes. And we'll initialize that with an empty array list. And that's going to be new. Okay, now we'll create a for loop just to traverse through our map sizes argument. Now this also has an option, so this is one of our preferred options. We'll check at a later stage, and pass in the map sizes. Okay, now I want to do a check here. In this moment in time, I'm just going to be using the camera in vertical mode, vertical orientation. So I need to check the width and the height. It's going to be passed down to me as landscape. So I'm going to need to refactor which is what, just to match my right heights, just to match my right orientations. So first of all, I just do a check here. If the width is bigger than the height, now I'll do a check on that width and the height just to see if they're bigger than the desired texture view width and height. Okay, so inside here we've got the option, and I can get the width from that. And in this particular case, I just want to check that it's bigger than the texture view requested width. And I'm going to do the same check for the height. So if the camera preview supported sizes are bigger than my desired width and height, yes, that's something I'll consider. So we can push that onto the collector sizes. And put an option here, add the option to it. Now I'll do the check for if a vertical orientation is being sent down from our texture view. So it's just going to compare the get width here against the height in this particular case, just to cover the vertical orientation. And if it satisfies these requirements, we will add it to the collector sizes. Okay, now we want to pick up the size and the collector sizes that's closest to our requested TextureView dimensions. So first of all, we'll need to do a check that we've actually found collected something in our collector sizes list. So check if that's bigger than 0, in other words it's got something inside it. If it has, we can return the closest matching here. So I'm going to use a collections dot min, and we'll pass in the collector sizes. And in here I'll create a new comparator just to check the sizes, compare the sizes. And okay, so here I'm going to return a long. It will be assign num, and enter in the left hand side first. Total dimensions here, so it'll be left hand get width multiplied by get height, and subtract that with the right hand side dimensions. Okay, so this is if it's got something, we've found something in the collector. If the collector didn't match anything, we will just send the highest matching value, we'll return that back. And that will be the value from the map sizes. And the first entry in there we'll return back, just in case we don't find anything. Okay, so we've got our get preferred sizes preview, which hopefully will match the closest dimensions, preview dimensions from our camera to our texture view. Okay, so we'll go back into the setup camera here. And in here, we need to create, we're going to be creating a new member, which is going to hold our preferred preview size. So let's create that up top. I'll create it up here. I'm just going to call it M preview size. And going back down here. So right, so we can go M preview size and call our newly created method. Okay, the first to get our to get the list of the preview sizes, we can call map get output sizes, and we're going to pass this surface texture class to it. So that's going to return basically an array of strings, that array of sizes that match each of the preview sizes. We're also passing the width and the height there of our requested texture view. Okay, so that's fine. Also want to create another variable just to hold the camera ID. So I'll go back up to the top. So we've got M preview size here. I'll create another one. This is going to be the string, and this is going to call it M camera ID. Okay, here we are. And so we'll set up our camera ID with the camera ID we would have picked up by traversing through our camera ID list. And once we've got those details, we can just return out of this method like that. Okay, so that's all the coding we want to do for today. I've been typing for quite a while. Okay, I just want to run this in debug mode just so we can see what values are getting returned to us from the camera characteristics scalar stream configuration map, and compare them with our TextureView width and height here. So let me just put in a breakpoint here, and we'll put one in here, and double check, and I can remove this one here, and double check that I am calling this. And so the setup camera will be called when we turn on the application Onresume. We'll set up the listener, and it'll be called right here. Okay, let's run debug. Okay, we've gone into setup camera here. We're about to start finding out which the camera IDs for all the cameras on the device. So we'll scroll on down. Okay, we want to get the camera characteristics. That might take a bit of a while, so in debug mode. Anyway, so we've got the characteristics. Now we'll do a check to see if the lens is front facing. If it is, ignore it. It's not. Okay, let's get the scalar stream configuration map that will hold our preview sizes supported by the camera. Okay, so we've got this map here. Now we can jump into to get our preferred sizes. And we create our list to hold those sizes and do a check. Okay, so we're popping back to the vertical orientation where I'm doing my check. And you can already see here's the largest preview size there. So I'll probably accept that. I do, I'm adding that to my collector sizes. And we're going back up again. And it's giving me the next dimensions. Those probably be big enough for my, well, we can find out what my height and width. So my height's 958 and the width is 704. So that will fit in as well. So I'm going to collect that. And let's go to the next one down. And in this particular case, it's 800 by 480. I think that's going to be too small, so I'll reject that. And it's being rejected. So, yep, I'm not going to accept anymore. So remove that breakpoint, and let's step on down to here. Okay, I know I've got my size is 2, which means I've got a couple of sizes there to check. I want to check the smallest one, which is what this is going to do. It's going to return the smallest size of those. So I can I can remove this breakpoint. Oh. And I'll add one here and continue executing. Okay, so I've got the preferred size here. We can actually see what that is. So it's 1280 by 720. So I'm not using the largest size. I don't need to for my preview. So if you can use a small enough size without losing any quality, this is what you should be doing, especially for the camera, because you could have a number of surfaces and you can only support a certain size of surfaces. In other words, camera image saved or preview screen dimensions. So you're going to have to be pretty careful on what you can actually utilize from the camera, purely from a bandwidth resources sort of issue. So we've got the camera ID, and that was 0. So we can continue executing on. Nothing's actually going to happen at this stage because this is the end of this particular section of the tutorial. So all we attempted to achieve was to get our surface view sizes set up for the preview part of the camera. So we're just using a sub-block of a block of the actual application. So we're breaking this down into smaller sizes, but even as you can see, even there was a significant part of coding just to implement this part just for that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoy and like my tutorials, please subscribe. That's all for this one. Bye for now. Okay, application started up. We've had our first breakpoint. We're going to open the camera. Okay, we're in the open camera method. Now we're actually going to open the camera with CameraId. We set that up from the previous tutorial.